Hey guys, it's Jeff from Home RenoVision, and today we are here to compare 3 different paints from Sherwin-Williams. Listen, they're all paint and primer in one, they're all washable, but they have a huge difference in price. So today we're going to find out what is the difference. All right guys, let's get started. First of all, we should mention that Sherwin-Williams has like 8 interior paint lines. It's a lot. And the reason for that, the variety, is because they do a lot more on the commercial side of the business, all right? So in the world of paint, we have regular kind of interior paint. We've got something a little more washable, and we've got something that's like the cat's meow of performance. But we also have other lines. So we have lines, they have another line that's even more expensive, and it's a designer line. Something to do with their colorants, okay? But they also have all these other lines that are designed for paint contractor gets a contract, he's doing a government building, he's painting all the walls in an office. Well, obviously there's no crayon monsters running around, and so he can go with a lower performance kind of input, which is also lower cost paint. Keeps the cost of doing business down. So they've got all these different options. As a homeowner, your job is to try to figure out, where do I land on that scale? Can I buy the cheapest paint? Is it worth it? Is it gonna look good? Is it gonna perform well? Is it gonna stink? Am I ever gonna be able to wash it? Or if I wash it, is the paint gonna wash right off the wall? And yes, there is paint out there today that will literally just wash right off the wall. So if you're looking for any washability at all, read your labels. Make sure it says acrylic latex on it. The question we're gonna answer today here doing this test is, just because it has more technology and is more expensive, doesn't mean it's gonna be a good paint for you, okay? So we're gonna go try these all out. And we're gonna see how well do they apply. We're gonna do a splatter test. Do they make a mess when you're working with it? What does it look like on the wall? And one of the things that's interesting about Sherwin-Williams is they don't make all of their paint lines with an eggshell paint. Whoa, wait a minute. So we don't have like an industry standard here we can test with, okay? So for instance, this is SuperPaint, it's interior, and it's called satin. It's not eggshell, okay? So we're going to see, what does satin look like on the wall? There is another paint here that has a satin and another one that has an eggshell. So there's gonna be some variations. And what we're looking for is, as a homeowner, the more sheen, the more shine, the more imperfections show up, okay? So if you're not somebody that wants to do a whole lot of prep work, you might wanna consider going down on the sheen and the shine scale. You can go all the way down to flat paint nowadays. And then as a flat paint, you can even add acrylic additives, and you can get flat paints that are washable now. Now, here's my splatter test, okay? There we go. Looking right up against the back of this. Just a couple of drips. Not bad. That means that this is going to work relatively clean. And if you work super fast, you're going to get more splatter. If you slow down a little bit, you'll get much less. That's awesome. So let's just get this on the wall. See what we're going to get here for coverage, first of all. Right? Brown over red ought to cover really good. One roller should be enough to get the job done here. Now, it claims to be a paint and primer in one. I hate the concept of paint and primer in one as a painter, because there's only ever a few things that you need to prime. You need to prime new drywall, and it has to be sealed. That way the paint sits on the surface and it doesn't soak it all up. If you're painting new paint on brand new drywall, you know, that whole gallon's getting sucked into one wall in your bedroom. It'll just suck it right through the drywall, okay? So use a cheaper product that's just designed to seal the drywall first, and there we go. We need primer if we're transitioning from oil to latex. If you're not sure, get some acetone, rub the wall and test it. If it wipes off with acetone, then it's got the acrylic in the paint, and that's different than oil, okay? There we are. The only other time you need a primer in your paint is if you're going with a light color and you're covering a dark one. All right? But in that case, do you want to use a $100 gallon of paint to cover over? Or would you just buy a primer for $20, $25 and add the pigment? Yeah, you can color your primer like regular primer and save a fortune. Well, then when do we really need primer in the paint? The only time you really need primer in the paint is if you want to avoid washing your walls. That's just really kind of nutty, right? If you've got stains, or you've got cigarette smoke, or you've got oils and waxes and grease and all that kind of stuff, you should wash your walls. Use TSP. Clean your walls, and then you're ready to paint. But a lot of people are looking for a quick solution. So they've marketed this paint and primer in one as a quick solution. The world fell for it. overnight, everybody's paying a fortune for their paints. Now, this is the Opulent. There is only about $6 difference between the SuperPaint and the Opulent line. And I think the biggest difference there is they're both washable, but this one is even more acrylic. So just because the label says acrylic doesn't mean it has the same amount of it, all right? So in a cheaper paint line, they'll put in a little bit. They'll call it 20%. Maybe this will be a 30 or a 50, and then we get to the top of the line, it'll be 100% acrylic. And that's the different ratings for different levels of acrylic, and that gives you different levels of performance. But more important than the performance of the paint, I want to know, how does it look when it's dry? And then I want to know, when you're advertising acrylic in your paint line and how it's a washable paint, how does it wash? Here we go, we'll put this one on the wall. Same thing, we're going to stretch this out. None of these paints from Sherwin-Williams claim to be one coat coverage. It's important. The bottom line is, as a professional painter, I never, ever, ever looked for one coat coverage because two reasons. One coat coverage means tons of solids in the paint, which means it's really saggy and it looks like I don't know what would you call it. It just looks disgusting on the wall, okay? It's thick and it's obviously globs of junk thrown on the wall. A really good paint should be smooth and sexy, have no lines. So you want to get a paint that has technology in it that dries, blending out and gets nice and smooth, okay? That's really what we're looking for. So right now we're checking to see how clean it works. Not bad. Again, a couple of specs on the back here. We're checking to see how it applies, how it covers. 2 coats are going to be fine. That's amazing. The real test with this comes in later, once we wash these bad boys. Here goes the Emerald. This one claims to be an interior acrylic latex, limited lifetime warranty. And for everybody who's interested, you can take a picture of the label on your phone, and then you can expand it so you can actually read it and find out all the details. Okay, yeah, the VOCs are prevalent here, but they're not terrible. They're not crazy. So this would be pretty nice. I mean, if you find yourself sensitive to smells, you can paint with a 0 VOC paint. They do exist, okay? And if that's you, hit me up in the comment section and I can give you some direction as to where to go to get that. Here we go. Splatter test first. Now, that's not bad. Just a couple of little dots. There we go. One of the most telling signs of a good quality paint is how, when you apply it, it goes on smooth and sexy and it doesn't make a mess. Now, when we hit the second coats, I'm going to paint a lot more aggressively so we can test it out then. Because in my experience, if a paint goes on really good when you're being casual like that, that's nice. Most homeowners aren't in a race to get the job done, right? You can afford to take your time, that's good. But what if you were in a hurry? What if you're doing your whole basement and you just wanted to get her done and you wanted to paint like a maniac? Well, we'll do that in just a few minutes. First, we're going to let this dry. We're going to give it a good solid hour. It's nice and warm in here today. We got the furnace on, it's dry. So this will be dried up in no time. We're going to give it a sand test, all right? And then we're going to put on the second coat. We're going to double check for the coverage of this paint. We're going to double check for my impressions about the quality. And at the end of the video, we'll do the stain test and we'll see if it really holds up. Okay, we're back. Everything's dried up. Oh, feels really good. You know, I love a good quality paint. You can always tell a quality paint because the surface texture is so smooth. These don't do stain blocking. If you want a stain blocker, let's say you got a marker, okay, and your kids said hi to you while you were out. Black marker from your office. You just grab a product like this. Kills original. It's a flat oil spray, okay? And that will do the job. Now, because this is an oil paint and that's an aerosol, it dries in about 10 minutes. It also might need a little bit of a touch-up before you go and put your colorant on the wall, okay? So be careful with that. Let it have some drying time. But this is also oil, so when you paint your latex paint, it's going to take a couple hours. It'll be a bit of a wet spot. All right? Now, a good quality paint that has a nice, how should we say, smoothing out textured finish will sit on this and then reach out and bond to each other in the neighborhood. It's not going to sag on the oil paint. That's key. Now it's time to sand this and do our next coats and see if we can get any difference in performance out of these 3 paints and the way they react to sanding. Now, so I've got my Radial 360, brand new pad here, and we will check after we sand each section. I'm expecting to get a little bit of a marring, a rubbing, even some white spots where there was bumps on the wall previously. Perfect test, I would have sanded the wall first, but there we go. See? A little bit of paint came off. That's expected. Not going to be an issue. When you paint, always, always, always sand in between coats. This is your protection against new roller lint. Okay? A lot of times, even if you're using a microfiber sleeve, a little bit of fiber will come off in the paint. Sits on the wall, nobody notices, you can't tell when you're working. You come by, you hit it with sandpaper, and you get that 1-inch piece of fuzz rubbed right off. That's fine if that happens, okay? Usually that happens with a brand new roller. Now that you've been painted the whole room, it shouldn't be a problem. So you come back, you sand, you get everything fixed up, ready to go. Then your next coat goes on the wall, smooth and silky, you don't have to touch it again. And people ask me all the time, Jeff, do you clean that off? Do you like sweep it, or do you wet rag it, or? No. That's all that came off the wall. All right, hardly nothing. The point of this, here's a clean hand. We'll do a little sweep test, okay? I'm gonna wipe that wall. There might be a little bit of fine dust, all right? But the point is, it's the same color as the paint. And every paint has solid material mixed into the paint. So anything that's on this wall right now in the way of dust is the same color. It's made of the same material. And when you apply your second coat, it's just going to pick it up, tumble it around a couple of times as you roll through, mix it in with the rest of the solids, and become part of the finished texture without causing any bumps or ridges, okay? So don't go through the hassle of sanding your walls and then washing them all and then making them dry. You paint, you sand, you paint again, poof, you're done, right? You can paint your whole room and be in time for the football game Sunday morning. While you're waiting for your paint to dry, throw a tray lid, okay? You're not going to find stuff like this at the local building store, but if you go to a professional paint store like a Sherwin-Williams, they've got all the advanced gear that make your life easy. You don't want things sitting out exposed to the air. They dry up. Dried paint makes chunks. Chunks make bumps. Bumps look like garbage on the wall, all right? Here we go. Next coat. We're looking for coverage. Well, you know, and partly because the paint color, like brown covers perfect every time, whether it's dark or light behind. Here we go. Nice and easy. I wanted to test one other thing out. Here. I got the new shoes. I've been wearing these shoes. We're going to test one more thing. If you use too much paint and you're going really fast, does it make a mess? Okay, here we go. And believe it or not, that is how I spent many years painting. Hey, not a single spot. That makes good paint. If you paint for a living, you're getting paid on square footage. So having a paint that can bloody well move as fast and work as well as you can is important. But we're here to actually just check to see which paint is best for the homeowner, right? You guys. I don't expect you guys to wake up Saturday morning, go down to the paint store, grab a couple supplies, be home for 9 o'clock, and then 10 minutes you've patched and you're dried, you got the hair dryer going, whoo, 10 o'clock you're out there cutting and rolling, and by the time you stop for lunch, you've got 2 coats and you've already trimmed out the place. That's not gonna happen, right? You got time on your side. Take it easy. Stretch your paint out. When you get a little bit dry, you go back to the beginning and you pick up that extra paint off the wall. Roll it out. Now I'm not pushing against the wall. I'm just rolling it nice and easy. Pressure goes down the handle, through the cage, higher here, less here. Cleans up any extra paint as you go along. That's how you get a great finish. There you go. Not only are we testing the paint, but we're teaching you how to paint as well. Such a deal. All right. And of course, at this point, there's no real difference, right? You can't tell. Because paint technology, generally speaking, is invisible to the naked eye until you put it through the performance ringer. Which is why we're going to give this 2 weeks. 2 weeks, guys. We're going to let this dry. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to stain the living tar out of these things. Coffee, wine, crayons, whatever you want. And then we are going to try the washability test on all of those problems. with all of these different paints. And then we are going to be able to determine, well, you can determine for yourself, based on the kind of house you live in, traffic area, right? If you're running a daycare out of your living room, which paint is right for you? You know, I really hope, for the sake of this test, the washability, there's a difference in performance. I'm starting to get irritated with how much every paint is exactly the same. That would be interesting if it comes out that they all perform just as well with washability too. Are we talking conspiracy theory here? Maybe. Guys, it's been 2 weeks, all right? You can tell by the beard. We've got 3 different paints that all have the same claim. Paint and primer in one. They're all washable. And so the question was, what is the difference? Here's one of the differences right out of the gate. This one is $86, okay? And yes, I'm doing this in permanent marker because we're going to test to see how easy this cleans off. This one is $91. Now, I don't know about you, but $5 difference for a can of paint when they have the same claim, not a lot of difference. The only difference is this one comes in satin, this one looks in eggshell. You put a gun to my head, I'm not going to tell you what the difference is. All of these went on exactly the same, okay? This one is $110. Again, if you've seen the video where we checked out the Benjamin Moore product lines, their high end was at $110 as well. Now, if you saw my last video, it was a little bit silly. We just went like this. Got some coffee on the wall, huh? And then we went and got some wine on the wall. There we go. We're going to give that a couple of minutes to soak in real good. Okay, so we're also going to try out these washable crayons, and we're going to see how washable they are. We're going to do some tests basically with just warm water and a rag, maybe some mild dish detergent, and then something a little more harsh if we need to get there to get it clean, and see if the paint can hold up to a bleach cleaner. This is really this is the money right here. Purple is good. That's easy to see. That'll make a nice marker test or crayon test, right? So if you're a parent and you're out there and you bought the washable crayons and you want to know, is it even going to work? This video's for you. Now we also need to get some washable marker out here. What's going to really show up well? I think we're going to go with the red because that's obviously different than the purple. There we go. And we'll make a nice little red mark over here. There we go. And we're making it big and obnoxious because it's one thing to wash it off. It's another thing if it leaves a residue or a mark. Okay, here we go. We'll try that out. All right. We're going to start off here. Just a little bit of warm water, guys. We're going to check out the coffee and the wine first. The last time we did a test like this, what we found was it was easy to see the drip lines after the fact. Because if you've ever seen paint when it gets water on it, you get the run line, like in your bathroom. You ever splash water and the paint seems to absorb the water? Question is, does it absorb the water and then leave a residue that's a stain, or does it come off? Right? So we're just going to go like this, do a nice big square. We're going to wash off all 3 of these, and then we're going to give this stuff a few minutes to really dry out and see if it leaves a mark. All right, and then on the other half of the wine and the coffee, we're going to use some mild detergent and see if that does a better job. So right out of the gate, looks very similar. It looks like the detergent's doing a better job on the red wine right out of the gate. Initially, I can tell the difference. The one's cleaner than the other. Fascinating. So then what we want to know is, does the mild detergent cause a difference in the paint color? Right? Is this leaving a mark that's going to need you to have to repaint? That's really interesting. All right, so let's take a look at some initial response. This side is darker than this side. Okay, same here. So I think the detergent is actually valuable. This side, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. I'm going to do the next test. I've got a sponge here that's got a green scrubby and a regular washability on it. We're going to see if it comes off. Look at that. Wow, just water. Yeah, a little bit of elbow grease, that comes off. Yep, that worked all 3. Just a little elbow grease. Awesome. And we're going to see if it works on the marker as well. Oh, yes. Now, here we go. This is where the interesting part comes in, because I can still see a residue. The marker's leaving a residue again. All right. Well, that's really interesting. Okay, we'll see if that residue is still there when it's dry. Paint's a very tricky substance, right? It just works like that. It can be pulling in water and leaving a mark, and then it's just a watermark and it can dry out and leave everything normal. What you'll notice is that it's taking the marker, but it's not leaving any brown. So the paint isn't being removed. Okay, now we're gonna try up on the black marker. It's the most difficult, so we're gonna go with the green scrubby. We're gonna test two things here. A, does it take the marker off? And B, does the scrubby hurt the wall? All right. And that is bloody amazing. It gets rid of the marker and it gets rid of the paint. That actually went right through. So let's try the paint without the green scrubby and see if it can remove the marker. Nope, that's not going to cut it. Now, does that get rid of the black mark without removing the paint? Yeah, there seems to be a delicate touch with this. That actually worked. I'm going to try this again without using so much force. The green scrubby, if you're just gentle with it, yeah, that'll work. Okay, so maybe that was me. Maybe that was just me being too aggressive. We'll find out in a minute when it dries, because if it was me just being too aggressive and it still leaves a mark from the abrasion, then we still need to repaint. Sometimes in the world of marketing, they make claims that are very broad spectrum claims and you just don't know what that actually means, right? So let's try this out again. We'll see if we can get rid of this with mild abrasion. And yes, that's lifting right out. Then the question is again, does it take off the paint at the same time? Yeah, that's taking off the paint. And so whenever you're taking off paint, that means you're repainting, okay? Let's do that hand test again over here. Yeah, we're taking off the paint. Obviously, this is a problem. Yeah. All right, so if we need to use enough abrasion to get rid of the marker, we're also setting ourselves up where we gotta paint. To me, in my world, I think I'd be a lot faster to pull out my kills and spray seal the marker and then repaint. I don't have to go through all this mess and rubbing and scrubbing. Okay, now, one other thing we gotta try. This is the magic eraser. We're gonna see how well this performs and if does it leave any mark on the wall. Does it leave a section there that says, screams out, hey, you gotta repaint me or not? Because what if we can manage all this? Wow, I mean, you're hardly using any pressure at all here. So I don't know what the magic is in this, but it worked. And it's not taking off any paint. That's pretty cool, actually. Huh. That works, but it leaves a bit of a smear. So just a nice light wipe with the cloth to finish it off. That's perfect. We gotta see if it discolors the wall. So, same thing here. Yeah, that works great. Ooh, that's not taking that red out here. Ho, ho, ho. That's not working as well on this one. Here we go. Yeah, the crayon, no problem. And the marker. Marker's a problem. Yeah, that still leaves a residue. That still leaves a residue. Okay, well, how about that? All right. So what we're finding out is that all of these paints have very similar characteristics. The more technology is in them, the better they are at their scrubbability and washability, okay? All of these seem to be cleaning up okay. You know what? I can see that red wine from a mile away. I'm gonna suggest not to use any of these paints if you have a lot of red wine parties in your house, people are tripping over each other. As for kids, great. This level here, the emerald, did a great job on the crayon and the marker. The black marker, yeah, it comes off, but you're gonna damage your wall doing it, so that's just the way it is. And honestly, just a little bit of dish detergent, that pulled it all out. I'm really looking forward to giving this a few minutes to finish drying so I can see if this area here becomes one congruent color again. And that's really the issue. Other than that, yeah, if you're using any of these two paints, you're gonna get crayon out and that's it, okay? Just so you know, you're crayon safe only. So then what is the difference between these paints? At this point, obviously the price. And that's a zero. Obviously the price is different, but the application, the way it looks, the way it feels, the lack of splatter while you're working, They all had some VOCs, okay? So you're gonna wanna have some fresh air in the house if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. But in the performance, this is where it comes down to it. Nuts and bolts. If you're gonna have a mess in your house, and the Sherwin-Williams line, I would say, even if you're going with crayon, that's not coming out very well. You're definitely gonna have problems with markers. Marker and crayon comes out with the emerald paint, all right? So if you're gonna have to choose something, go with the emerald line if you're gonna stick with Sherwin-Williams. But I got a little secret for you. If you haven't seen our other videos, you're gonna wanna check them out because there is an option to having to spend that kind of money to have something that still is washable after your kids. So at the end of the day, my lifestyle testing has proven the following. All three of these are exactly the same. The same sheen, the same application, the same texture, the same look, and it's beautiful. So as long as you don't put anything on your walls, you're gonna be just great. But the minute you bring in little kids, you've got to go all the way up to their top line in order to have a washable paint. That's disappointing because at $110 a gallon, that's a really big bite to chew off, which makes you wonder, what's this one for? It has no difference in performance than this line. It's just a marketing ploy as far as I'm concerned to get you to go, oh, I'm up to the $91 paint. You know, I'm gonna have to trust SuperPaint. I mean, even look at the cans, guys. If you're a contractor showing up in someone's home, which of those two cans do you want to put on the floor? Right? SuperPaint, just dandy. Or Opulence, and make your client feel like they're special. I'm not deaf to what's gonna happen in the comment section. You're all gonna be screaming, Jeff, check to see if the white wine comes out of that paint from 1974. That's a brilliant question, so let's find out. Boom. Yep, and you wanna know why? Because back in 1974, we had gloss, and we introduced low levels to high levels of gloss that made the surfaces somewhat washable. We've removed a lot of that technology and gone back to latex, which is an additive. And so we're actually making a different paint than we did back then. Our paint today is supposed to look a lot softer on the wall, but it doesn't perform as well unless you're spending the big bucks.